So imagine Guy Ritchie, acclaimed director of such memorable hits as Snatch, 2015 Man from U.N.C.L.E. remake, and even Disney's live-action adaptation of Aladdin. Yeah, that Guy Ritchie. Imagine him sitting down watching National Treasure with Nick Cage and thinking, what's all this then, eh? I'd like to take a crack at one of those types of films. My apologies for all those across the pond for that sad Guy Ritchie impersonation, but Apple TV Plus decided they wanted to throw a bunch of money at him to basically make his version of National Treasure without the camaraderie of a team that gels well, dialogue that I only assumed was written by AI, and well, no Nick Cage in sight. That's right, my friends, I saw Fountain of Youth, so it's time for Elin Reviews. A thing. Fountain of Youth is the latest to stream exclusively on Apple TV Plus, and according to IMDb, two estranged siblings join forces to seek the legendary Fountain of Youth. Using historical clues, they embark on an epic quest filled with adventure. If successful, the mythical fountain could grant them immortality. It stars John Krasinski as Luke, Natalie Portman as Luke's sister Charlotte, Domhnall Gleeson as the eccentric billionaire Owen Carver, and Isaac Gonzalez as Esme, whose sole purpose is to track down Luke and foil his adventures. Speaking of Luke, someone needs to immediately edit together a compilation of how many times Natalie Portman says Luke, because wow, it's a lot. Anywho, I got an early screener for this film so that I could review it for all of you. And after I watched the trailer, I thought, oh boy, I hope they were pressed for time making this trailer because this was the best they could come up with without spoiling the film. Yikes. But I understand not everything is supposed to be thought-provoking or Oscar-worthy, of course. I can turn off my brain with the best of them and just enjoy the ride. But from the opening action scene where Luke is trying to get away from some bad guys, I knew I was in for a long ride, and not in a good way. From the get-go, though, I could see John Krasinski trying his hardest to make do with the poor dialogue he was given. Well, honestly, all the actors tried to make do, but everything seemed too wooden, or like it was written by an alien who had studied Earth films and this was their first attempt at a screenplay. The feeble attempts at what I can only assume was humor fell flat almost every time. Even the banter between siblings Luke and Charlotte was cringy. Yeah, siblings are gonna make jabs at each other and crush each other's soul with a witty quip that is guaranteed to get under their skin, but what actually came out of their mouths was closer to siblings that were estranged, or maybe they were only siblings through marriage and not blood relatives, forced to play nice and then went on with their lives once they moved out of the house. They sure talked a lot about the legacy of their dad, and no mention of divorce, but could have fooled me. But whenever the sibling banter happened, it stalled the pace of the film too. Like it wasn't banter that helped the plot much, it was just a forced interjection of, hey, time out on the movie for a second, let's make fun of each other. Okay, now let's proceed with the movie. And of course, Luke being chased by the attractive Esme meant that he's going to try and playfully hit on her while she's trying to seriously injure him or kill him. What else is a charming man going to do when confronted with a hot babe, you know? One other glaring critique I need to give this film is that it thinks the audience is dumb as rocks. I know it's meant to be a fun, action-packed popcorn movie, but goodness, there are so many exposition dumps throughout the entire runtime. The structure is as follows: action, exposition, a little more downtime, action, exposition, action, exposition. How many times do we need exposition, folks? Show, don't tell, right? We can get things from context, come on. In fact, the very first scene that the siblings have together, Luke says something along the lines of, hey, can a brother just come and visit his kid sister every once in a while? Yuck, 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 yuck. There are so many clever ways to establish that two characters are siblings besides basically saying, we are related. Another example is, how are these crazy adventures being financed? Oh yeah. Let's have a restaurant scene with Owen Carver telling Charlotte's son Thomas that his fortune begins with a B. Oh, you didn't say billionaire explicitly, I'll give you that, but good lord. And speaking of Thomas, it's established early on that he is somewhat of a musical prodigy. And no, I won't spoil it for you, but the reason a kid his age stays on these dangerous adventures with these people is because his genius musical brain helps solve some of the puzzles along the way. Neat. But back to spoon feeding everything to the audience through wooden dialogue, there is a scene in the middle of the movie that just takes it to a whole new level, thinking the audience is so dense. Again, this doesn't spoil anything because it's in the trailer, but Luke is a known art thief. So not only is he constantly being chased by Esme, but also this guy, Inspector Jamal Abbas, played by Arian Moayed. He shows up to a hideout of Luke's, ruining the party, but at this point, you think Luke is somehow gonna get out of this jam since that's what he's best at. But before you know it, another team barges in, also looking for Luke, and that could have been it. It's crystal clear who these people are. And yet, the leader of this second group says something to the effect of, "You think I'm dumb? I'm not dumb. I'm smart. That's why I followed him," referring to Inspector Abbas. Yeah, we got it. I mean, come on, give us a little bit of credit at least. But of course, in a movie like this, you have explosives and demo experts. That's Deb. And the one who knows all about tech. That's Patrick. But honestly, they were such throwaway characters. They were only there for more exposition dumps and to support the overall grand adventure. They had no arcs, no character development. They had one job, and they did it. I honestly felt bad because I personally like these actors, and they definitely knew what they were getting into when they read the script. But hey, a payday is a payday. Gotta put food on the table. I respect that. Also, there's a point in the movie where Deb gets injured and Patrick just kind of stays with her, holding her. They don't seek medical attention. They just wait until others reemerge, and then Deb magically has a sling on her arm. Okay. But this continuing theme of thinking the audience is dumb doesn't let up, since I saw the writing on the wall a mile away on how they were going to solve these riddles to make their way to their final destination. There was even a twist towards the end, which was obvious. And let me tell you, the climax of the film was just bonkers. An elaborate stunt with lots of visual effects swirling all around that just kept going. A few seconds in, I was like, oh yeah, this happens. Cool. Let's go. Let's go. We're still going? But the best part is it happens twice. It's not as long the second time, but again, something I saw happening a mile away. So to be forced to watch this elaborate thing happen a second time was a choice. Whew, I know there wasn't a lot to redeem this movie in my eyes, but I will have to say, the stunt work and action scenes were pretty cool, with some stylized Guy Ritchie elements thrown in there. But again, it didn't really feel like the action scenes were all that necessary to really move the plot along. It felt like they were contractually obligated to put those action scenes in, or else the movie would just be called Fountain of Exposition. Although, there is an action scene that takes place in a library that was very fun, cutting back and forth between characters who can all hear what's going on through their earpieces. I chuckled. And there's a moment where Luke is speaking and it speed ramps down to slow-mo, but it stays in slow-mo, so they continue to speak in slow-mo voices. I got a kick out of that, I'll admit. But never once did I think Luke or anyone on this adventure around the world was in any danger. So every time the protagonists themselves got in a precarious situation, it made the action scenes feel rather weak, since I knew they would somehow miraculously survive in the end. But honestly, beyond that, I don't have any more notes, my friends. At a runtime of just over 2 hours, it felt like 3 to try and make it through. So with that being said, I can confidently say,
this thing, it wasn't made for me, but that don't mean it might not be for you. And that's okay, friend.
I mean, maybe there's a reason this wasn't in the theaters and meant to be streamed on Apple TV Plus only. Don't get me wrong, I've been impressed with the quality of work on Apple TV Plus, but this was something else. But I'm sure the cast and crew had fun making it, right? Right. As always, this world is crazy as it is, so it only makes sense to be kind to everyone you come in contact with. And a friendly reminder, it is so hard to make a movie, much less a good one. So remember that there is no such thing as a bad movie, just one that wasn't made for you. And of course, life is hella good, if you want it to be. Bye now.